Welcome to the E-commerce Profits Podcast, where we feature top founders and experts in the e-commerce industry and take an in-depth look at the struggles and successes in growing e-commerce brands profitably.
Hey guys, it's Josh Chin here. I'm the host of the E-commerce Profits Podcast, where we feature top experts and entrepreneurs in the e-commerce industry and we go behind the scenes of the struggles and successes of growing a brand. Now, this episode is brought to you by Chronos.agency. If you run a direct-to-consumer e-com brand that is ready to scale and to double your customer lifetime value through owned marketing, Chronos is your company. We've helped hundreds of brands scale profits with email, SMS, and mobile push while getting an average of 3,500% ROI from our efforts. We've worked with brands like Truly Beauty, The Uli, Dr. Living Good, and many more. Now, the next step is to email us at sales@chronos.agency, or you can go to chronos.agency to learn more. Before introducing today's guest, I want to give a big thank you to Geek Out. That's geekoutedu.com. Go check out their website. And one of the best marketing events in 2021 that I've had the pleasure and privilege of being a part of, both as a sponsor and a speaker. It's an incredible, highly curated event that is meant for operators in the e-com and Facebook ads industry. Go check them out, geekoutedu.com, for more details. Today's guest is none other than Brett Curry. Brett is an OG in the e-commerce industry, one of the guys I look up to when I first started my business back in 2017. Brett, I know I haven't mentioned that before, but I've been following your stuff for a long time.
Thank you. It's awesome to hear.
Brett is an online marketer, an e-com strategist and speaker, but first and foremost, he is an entrepreneur. He's the CEO of OMG Commerce, an e-commerce marketing agency and a Google Premier partner. They run Google ads and YouTube ads and Amazon management for some of the most successful and popular brands in the D2C and e-com space. And in fact, not many people know this, but Ezra only works with one agency for all his brands. He only works with a single agency. No other agency does any of his work, and that's OMG Commerce. And the e-commerce evolution podcast is an incredible podcast, very, very popular. Dives deep into fresh interviews with both merchants and vendors and experts in the e-com industry on what's new and what's up and coming in the space. A big fan of the show. And Brett is a would you consider yourself a Midwestern guy?
Yeah. So born and raised in the Midwest, born in Kansas City, but really grew up and still live in Springfield, Missouri. So yeah, I'm a Midwest guy. Yeah, for sure.
And 8 kids.
Eight kids. Yeah, that was not the plan initially, but we have 8 kiddos ranging from 19 and a half to 5. And it's pure chaos, but it's beautiful as well. And we love it.
I love that. Let's dive into the conversation. Brett, what's when people ask you for an intro, that typically takes a long time because you've been in the scene since 2003. That's a long
I feel like
time.
an old guy sometimes, I still feel young on the inside, but man, I've been doing this a while. Yeah.
You're doing it all the time. Now, here's a different way of, I guess, asking the same question. What keeps you excited over the years, and what keeps you going? Because at some point, I just from an outsider's point of view, it can seem like, well, obviously, how many years? 17, 18 years is a really, really long time for anyone, let alone in the e-com and digital space where things move so quickly. What are the key milestones that you've experienced over your years?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so I think like the real answer is I love the game, right? I enjoy, first of all, I get bored easily. So, like having this goal of, I want to sell a business and have $20 million in the bank and just go sit on a beach. Not really. It's not my thing. Like I want to have that kind of money in the bank, but I don't want to just sit on a beach. I like being in the game. I love marketing. I love advertising. I remember as a kid, I used to like watching infomercials and just something about the persuasion and the showing a cool product demo. I don't know. It kind of lit me up on the inside as a kid. And so I've always loved marketing. I love good brands, good products. And so it's just endlessly fascinating to me to look at how do we take this really solid brand, communicate the message in a way that's compelling, deliver it in the right media. So primarily we use, Google, YouTube, Amazon. How do we deliver that to accelerate growth for a brand? And I don't think I'll ever get tired of doing that. I love teaching. I love speaking. I like being in the game. I like the game of business. And so that's kind of what keeps driving me. But yeah, I've been doing this a while. So in the early days, I was doing actually quite a bit of traditional media. So in college, I kind of worked my way through college by selling radio. So I worked for a radio station, and then I was doing a lot of TV advertising. And so in the early days, I did TV and radio. And then in 2004 is when I started learning like SEO and SEM, and that kind of blew my mind. I absolutely loved it. But it was kind of, for me, like a couple of the milestones. One, when I was doing TV and radio, and I did some stuff for like local car dealerships and stuff like that. I remember talking to, the Chevy dealership owner and be like, hey, what ads are working for you right now? And they're like, well, we don't really know. We know we run this ad and people come in, we run these ads, people don't come in. But sometimes they would, ask a customer, hey, why did you come in today? And the customer would be like, hey, I just heard you guys on the radio. And they'd be like, that's funny because we haven't run the radio for like 3 months, right? So there's all this like, hey, we know that message is important when it comes to traditional media, but kind of hard to track some of it, right? So that's what really attracted me to online marketing in the first place was like, hey, we can see what keywords people are typing, and then we can see what they click on, and then we can see what they do after they click, and then we can see if they buy. Of course, some of that's going away, which I think we'll talk about today. Actually, it's probably not as bad as most people think. So that was a big deal for me. And really, because I did a lot of TV in the past, I was always fascinated early on with YouTube and really wanted to learn like, hey, what makes YouTube tick? And I remember watching Gary Vee at Wine Library TV back when it was like the original show, and back when he was using a flip camera, not a flip phone, but a flip camera. If you're listening and you know what that is, then hats off to you. You're probably an OG. As well. But I remember watching that and just being fascinated by YouTube, but I didn't really see how YouTube would work for my clients. And then I was at a Google Live event. I think it was in New York City. And they announced this new thing called True View for Action, where you could run YouTube ads, but bid to hit a target CPA. And I thought, this is perfect because all my clients were direct response. They want to generate customers at a designated cost per acquisition or a CAC goal. So when True View for Action came out, I was like, man, this is the blending of all my worlds, right? Because YouTube has like some SEM components to it. There's a keyword and a search component to it. It's got video. It actually functions kind of like TV. So it's kind of like TV ads. And then we can now bid to get performance. Then I was like all excited. So we were one of the early agencies to run YouTube ads for e-commerce from a direct conversion standpoint. And now for agencies our size, we're a team of about 50. We're one of the top spenders on YouTube ads for e-commerce, which is pretty exciting.
That's really interesting. Now let's unpack that. What drove you to digital media in the first place with attribution is now, I suppose, at a threat. It's at risk of going away, but not really. With cookies becoming a thing of the past, potentially, maybe, privacy and all that stuff.
Google keeps kicking the can down the road, right? Like, hey, cookies are going away in 2022. Well, maybe by the end of 2023.
What's happening there? Because you work with Google very closely.
Yeah, we do. And so a couple of things. One, yes, it is funny. Like the thing that attracted me to digital marketing in the first place was you can track this stuff. You know what works and what doesn't. And that's the other thing that's always interested me about advertising is like, why does this headline work 10 times better than that headline? Or why does this spokesperson in a video convert like crazy, but that spokesperson doesn't, right? Like Priceline, when they brought in William Shatner to do their videos, things just exploded. Like he just resonated with people. So that's endlessly fascinating to me. So yeah, attribution was key in getting me into digital marketing. And now it's like the bane of my existence. Not really. Actually, there was a period of time when I was like, angry at Tim Cook from Apple and like, Apple, why are you ruining a good thing, man? This is not going to be better for users.
Yeah.
But really, I've kind of not come full circle, but realized that it's not going to be as bad as we think, and good creative will still win the day, and we'll always be able to track enough data to be able to make our decisions better, right? And if we go back to the early days, like the founding, the greats in marketing, that were using mail-in coupons and stuff from their newspaper ads or magazine ads, like we're so far advanced to that, and so we'll always have more data to work with than they did long ago. So a couple of things. One, I think it's important to remember when it comes to cookies and Google and kind of how that's functioning, is that first party cookies are not going away, right? It's just third party cookies. So a quick explanation. I'm not a programmer, I'm just a marketing nerd. But first party cookies, that's where when you go to a website that you visited before, it saves your username and your password, right? That's stored. That's between you and that merchant.
Yep.
First party cookies make things better for users. So no one is wanting those to go away. It's third party cookies where Google's coming in and tracking your behavior on other websites that are not Google. So what's interesting though is that Google has a lot of first party data, right? Think about the billions of searches that happen on a daily basis on Google. That's Google's data. You're searching on their website. So they have access still to that information. It's first party data. So a lot of the ways we target and build audiences on Google, those aren't fully going away. Now, Google's doing some things to create more like less transparency, right? Where you can't individually track people, but they're still going to be able to know like, hey, Josh is looking for this kind of sneakers, right? And so because he just searched for it on Google, which is our site, so now we can show relevant ads to him. So that I don't see that going away. I think some of the ways we see conversions on our end will go away or will shift a little bit. But again, it kind of goes back to first party data. Got to have first party data. So I think one of the things, like we were all depressed, and I'm being dramatic, but we were depressed as an agency, like, why iOS 14 so terrible. But really, I think in some ways, like this has created more of a need for good agencies. Like it's created in iOS 15 with emails, it's created more of a need for Chronos, for your agency, for people to say, hey, help us with this. It's created more of a need for people on the YouTube and Google side to say, hey, help us unpack this. It's going to spring up a market of third-party attribution tools and things like that, which will be useful. So there's solutions. It's not all doom and gloom. It's going to be a-okay. But yeah, it is interesting that what got me into digital marketing is now like the most difficult thing that I'm doing.
Good to know. That's really good to know. And so for newcomers to the e-com space, where it be legacy retailers coming into D2C or just new brands coming onto the scene. I've just had this conversation with a buddy of mine who runs a really successful electronics direct to consumer company in Singapore, and he felt that, and his game is all direct response. It's pure D2C, and he runs Facebook ads primarily. And he feels that for a newcomer to do exactly what he's done when he first started like 4 or 5 years ago, it's incredibly difficult to succeed just because of how tough it is in terms of the competition that you see on these platforms, and also how difficult it is to find the right level of attribution. So is there on one hand, existing brands and successful brands have an edge in terms of access that they have to agencies, to information, and to prior data points versus a newcomer to the space? Is there a deeper or wider gap between the two now?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. So I mean, we're primarily as an agency working with brands that already have some traction, that are already selling and succeeding, and a couple million in revenue at least, usually, and more. So that's where I spend most of my time.
Yep.
But we're still talking to. In fact, I was just consulting with a hair care product brand earlier today and kind of unpacking a YouTube strategy. And they just started in 2019, and they're projected to do between 7 and 8 million in 2022. And so it's like, hey, you can reach that kind of scale even now. I do think in some ways it's more difficult, right? Because there is more competition, right? And Facebook isn't as easy now as it used to be. And I'm not a Facebook guy, and I don't run Facebook. I can't speak to it like an expert, like I can on YouTube. But we follow Facebook, obviously. But it's not as easy on Facebook to scale like you once could, right? And so, yeah, I think the barrier to entry is a little bit harder. So if you already have assets that convert, right? You've got good video assets, you've got user generated content and before and after pictures and testimonial videos and things like that, and it's already working for you, that gives you a leg up for sure. If you've already got audiences, you've got email lists, you can build lookalike audiences or similar to audiences with, that gives you a leg up for sure. So yeah, I think it would be more intimidating to start now in the post iOS 14 and 15 world than it would have been to start before that. But I mean, I guess what was the old saying? Like the best time to have started was 5 years ago, but the second best time is now, right? So I still would be very bullish. If you've got a great product, you can still succeed today, and I think one of my favorite quotes, it's a Jim Rohn quote. He said, hey, really 3 keys to success in business, right? It's have something good to say. So good product, good offering, say it well. So really good marketing, delivering in a clear, compelling, concise way, and then say it often. So having the right media strategy. And that's still possible to do those things, even on a limited budget and even with attribution where it is right now.
To say something well and to say something consistently, that speaks to an audience. I guess that's where creatives come in, and we talked a little bit about this before we hit record. But what type of creatives are working on on YouTube, and what's not, and what do you foresee for the next couple of years?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. It's kind of hard to say exactly where things are going, although I'll pontificate on that in just a little bit. Hopefully that'll be helpful. What's interesting is, what works on YouTube is quite different than what works on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram Reels. And right now, the closest correlation, the closest comparison for YouTube ads would be television ads. And specifically what we do, it's like short form infomercials, right? Those 1.5 to maybe 3 minute short form infomercials. That's the most similar thing to YouTube ads. So the type of YouTube ads we're running, they're the pre-roll in-stream ads that are skippable after 5 seconds. So you're forced to watch the first 5 seconds and you can skip after that. So what we're finding, what works best there is something that says enough to make someone want to click and take the next step. But to do that, you got to hook them in the first 5 seconds and really get their interest. And you have to hook the right people to stay around. It needs to be kind of this convincing product demo, right? Where they see the product in action before and after, see it work and that type of thing that makes them want to stick around. You usually need some social proof to kind of let some of the claims you're making and to let that demo really sink in and be believed. And then you got to have a really clear call to action. There's other things we can unpack there if we want to, but like having that compelling video is super important. And one of the things that the Google said, and this is from a few years ago, that success on YouTube is 85% creative, right? And the rest is media. I don't know exactly how they calculated that, but I would not disagree with it. And I think now creative is even more important because as bidding algorithms maybe lose a little bit of their ability to key in on certain conversion actions, the ability just to run a so-so ad and let the algorithm kind of do all the heavy lifting, that's going to be going away a little bit, right? So now you've really got to nail that creative. And so, one of the things we're seeing, and I'm trying to follow TikTok as closely as I can. And of course, Facebook and Instagram. I know that the trend is shorter videos. Yeah. We're seeing YouTube Shorts, and I'm watching that some. So I think there probably is going to be a play for shorter videos on YouTube. But right now, we're really seeing like 45 seconds to 2.5 minutes in terms of the length of the video. Those are working best for conversions, right? Of course, you've got to say things well, and it's got to be interesting and all of that. But longer videos work better than shorter videos. I'll give you a couple of examples. Deodorant brand that we work with, they tested 2 versions of essentially the same ad. So same actor, same setting, same script. Just one version was a 30 and the other was like a 1:09. But it was really, they just took the 1:09 version and just edited it down to the 30. We ran those side by side. the minute 9 version had 10x the conversions than the shorter version did. And now the shorter version had better view rates. It had slightly lower cost per view, but it did not convert nearly as well. And we continue to see that. And so for now, still that kind of 45-second to 2.5-minute video is ideal. We did just hear recently, Google/YouTube has said, hey, any video over 3 minutes, we're going to kind of charge you a tax on that. They didn't call it a tax, but they said, they want you to run shorter videos than 3 minutes. So those, if you run a longer than 3-minute video, your CPMs or your cost per thousand will go up there. So
I see. And I've seen ads that go on for like 30, 40 minutes. They're essentially just videos that go as a pre-roll, which is super interesting to see.
Super interesting. Yeah. So some of those the costs are going to go up for those, but they can still work, right? I remember, I think it was actually last Christmas time. I was hanging out, like all the kids that opened presents, were just bored. And I ended up watching like a 19-minute ad for Charity Water, the charity. And then I ended up donating. Like I put them on monthly. It was such a good video. It was 19 minutes long and it was an ad. But yeah, so that can still work. I don't think that's going away completely. I just think there's for most brands, you can say all you need to say in that first video and kind of that 2.5 minutes or less, and get someone to click and take a first step in making a conversion, whether that's a add to cart or signing up for something or whatnot. You can do that in about 2.5 minutes. But yeah, I think there'll always be a place to some degree for those longer form videos.
Go down the funnel a little bit. Google Shopping. So traditionally a bottom of the funnel type of a channel. Would you agree?
Yeah, Google Shopping has always been like the closer, right? It's the channel where people go to buy stuff. And for the most part, if you're going to be searching for a product, like my wife she recently backed our van into a tree. She's an excellent driver. She was distracted. We had to search for a rear view mirror, right? So usually if you're going to do something like that, you're searching for something specific, you're going to go to Google, you're going to go to Amazon, one of those two places, right? That's usually where search begins. And so Google Shopping has always been that, hey, I'm searching with high buying intent. I'm not just browsing for a rear view mirror for our van for fun. Like I need one. So that's why I'm searching. So yeah, usually lower in the funnel, kind of mid funnel or lower. But what's interesting is that, and I love Google Shopping. Back in 2016, I think it was, I wrote the ultimate guide to Google Shopping in partnership with Shopify. It was one of their most downloaded guides around that time. Since just did an update on that, so I'm happy to shoot you a link. It's free, no opt-in gate or anything. It's posted on the Shopify website.
Perfect. Yeah, put it down in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, it's a great resource. So what's interesting with Google Shopping is, shoppers like the ads, right? Because it's a picture of the product, it's the price. You can see reviews. Often you see the title of the product. So compelling for shoppers, high click-through rate, things like that. Great for merchants because usually the conversion rate's high, return on ad spend is high. And then, of course, it's good for Google because Google makes a ton of money. So in the past, those ads only showed up in the search results, right? You go to Google, you search for rear view mirror, or I'm into barbecuing as well. So maybe search for a smoker, right? That's a little more fun than replacing the rear view mirror on your van. So you're searching for a new smoker and you see the results. Usually there's like 8 or less kind of right there on the main search engine results page. You can also click over to the shopping results if you want to and get more options there. But most people just view it right there on the shopping page. What's interesting is that Google's like, hey, how can we get more ad revenue from shopping ads, right? And hey, consumers love them, merchants love them, we love them, so let's put them everywhere. So now you got this thing called dynamic prospecting, and this is mostly with just smart shopping campaigns. And if we need to back up, we certainly can. But basically, what's happening now, and you can see this, you probably experienced this on your own. Let's just use that smoker analogy. So I'm looking for a new wood pellet smoker grill, and so I'm searching for that on Google, but I don't buy anything. And then I go to YouTube to watch a Kansas City Chiefs video. Go Chiefs! I'm a Chiefs fan. But then on YouTube, I see some Google Shopping ads there for other smokers, maybe not even the smokers that I've been looking at, but other related smokers. And so that's part of what Google is doing, is they're saying, hey, how can we take Google Shopping ads that work so well, and how can we put them in other places, slightly higher in the funnel, but still, in places that will drive conversions. And so shopping has largely been that mid or bottom of funnel, but Google is looking for ways to go slightly higher in the funnel. And so now, we used to see where shopping campaigns would hit a real ceiling, where you're just limited by search volume. Now, because of some of these other things, you can scale Google Shopping. We have multiple clients, spending several $100,000 a month on Google Shopping alone. And so, so it's a fascinating channel to me. And so happy to answer any questions related to that.
So I think one of the biggest question marks is that from an outsider's point of view, obviously, would you hit a snag, like a barrier to scaling Google Shopping, just because of there's only so much search volume that's available for you to buy ads on, or are there workarounds to that issue?
Yeah, it still exists, right? It is still primarily a query-based channel, right? It's search-based and search-driven.
Yeah.
And so, if you're in a product category where not a lot of people are searching for that product by name, then you need to do something else to drive that business. And so we like to talk about, you're either kind of a demand capture business or you're a demand generation business, or most of the time you're somewhere in the middle, right? But demand capture would be back to that automotive example, right? Rear view mirrors. I'm not looking for that unless I have a need, right?
Yeah.
So that's like pretty pure demand capture where advertisers there are just existing off of the demand that already exists. If we go to something like Boom Sticks, you mentioned Ezra Firestone. We've worked with them forever. He's a good friend of mine as well. So Boom Stick, it's kind of a makeup replacement. It's designed for women over the age of 50. It's not that common that people are searching for makeup replacement for women over the age of 50. There's some that do, right?
Yeah.
That's not that common. So that's more of a demand generation. So we have to create that demand by running YouTube and Facebook ads. And still for Boom, Facebook is the biggest channel, but YouTube is number 2. So we have to generate that demand. So that's another reason why I love YouTube, is because one of the ways to grow shopping, and shopping is super profitable and really powerful. One of the best ways to grow it is to run YouTube ads, right? Or run top of funnel Facebook ads. And that's going to feed more people into kind of the shopping funnel. So you are going to hit ceilings, and it's going to, the height of that ceiling kind of depends on the category of the product that you're in.
And the way that you run your campaigns, and just from you look at different channels for example, for Boom. How do you make sure that, and I know that you have a different methodology to this. How do you make sure that these channels are not siloed? I'm just curious, from a fellow agency operator.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that the teams are speaking to one another and the outcome of those campaigns are kind of a sync up of the channels versus a silo of results?
Yes, such a great question. And I love that analogy, because I still think a lot of brands are operating in a siloed mentality, right? I have a 2.5x ROAS goal. So that means I want every campaign to drive a 2.5x return. Well, if you do that, you're basically not going to run much on YouTube, and you're not going to do a whole lot with Facebook top of funnel. But if you say I want to hit a 2.5x, then maybe top of funnel Facebook and top of funnel YouTube operates at a 0.75, but it makes shopping way bigger, and branded search way bigger, and organic way bigger, and email way bigger. And so then collectively you can still hit that 2.5 or 3x portfolio wide. So one of the things that's amazing is if you work with someone like Ezra, who just understands marketing at a fundamental level, and so then it's easy to have these conversations. And so he was one of the first clients that I heard talk about, hey, we want to hold each campaign to standards, right? We want to have goals and objectives for campaigns. So it's not that we can say, well, YouTube is the first touch, so it doesn't matter what the ROAS is. We don't say that, but we just don't expect YouTube to do the same thing as branded search, right?
Yeah.
And so we hold campaigns accountable, but then it kind of comes down to total money in terms of revenue, and total money out in terms of ad spend. And so, a word that I hear a lot of people talking about now, and I'm really thankful that a lot of people are thinking about it, is media efficiency ratio, or MER, right? Which is basically you're looking at your total ad spend and your total sales, and making sure you're in alignment. So, there's always going to be this scenario where Facebook's going to take credit for a sale. Google's going to take credit for a sale. And if you're doing some Amazon, like Amazon DSP or something, they're going to take credit for the sale too. Email wants to take credit, right? So there's always going to be a little bit of that, or quite a bit of that. So the way you unpack that, one of the ways you unpack that is by making sure your MER is always in a good place, right? And over time, understanding that, hey, to hit a 100% ROAS from a MER standpoint, I need the certain channels to be reporting at X. And so then kind of understanding that. So we're definitely having those conversations. We're looking at how do we, for all of our clients, even if we're just doing Google, YouTube, and Amazon, how do we at least get insight on what they're doing on Facebook so that we can see as we go up or down in spend, or Facebook goes up or down in spend, what that does to branded search campaigns and things like that. So using third-party tools and other things to help track that and get clearer is also pretty important.
Let's switch gears a little bit. E-commerce evolution, really fun podcast, and I
Thanks,
think
man.
that you bring a ton of energy to the show that I try to learn from a lot. What
Awesome.
is your who is your favorite guest in 2021?
Man, that is really, really tough. I just recorded a couple of things that are super awesome that I can't tease just yet. But one of my favorites, this was so much fun. Did an interview with Joseph Wilkins of Funny Sales Videos. And so this is, I'll actually look up the actual episode here. I was actually just talking to somebody else about this recently, episode 184. So I just happened to have that queued up because somebody else was asking about it before. But he's the creative agency behind True Earth. So I don't know, are you familiar with True Earth, the little laundry detergent
Ryan.
strips? Yeah, Ryan McKenzie. Yeah, longtime friend. We helped them launch on YouTube. So we first used like this. Yeah, it's an awesome brand. Ryan's an awesome guy. Shout out to Ryan McKenzie.
By the way, I love the product. I've never seen anything like it. It's not in Singapore. Ryan, if you're listening to this, come to Singapore. Launch in Singapore.
It's the next market. Hey, it would not be that hard to get into the Singapore market, right? You've got a connection right here. Yeah, Josh can help you out. It's not a huge country, size of Rhode Island. I just learned this.
Exactly.
To Josh,
we'll make it happen.
So you own the Singapore market. So we helped True Earth launch on YouTube, and now YouTube is a really large channel for them, and so is Google. Kind of helped them build from the ground up. And we were working with some pretty basic videos. Like Ryan's a very sharp marketer. He wrote a script. He recorded this video basically on his MacBook. Used stock photography. Like it was an okay video. The message was good, but like the production was like really cheap. I think we got 12 million views on this video now, and it's still cranking out sales. Well, he started working with a guy named Joseph Wilkins, and Joseph is brilliant, just absolutely brilliant. He kind of like Harmon Brothers style videos. So think Squatty Potty, Poopery, Purple Mattress, things like that. But Joseph has created stuff for True Earth and a number of others. So in this podcast with Joseph, we like walk through how to make a funny sales video that works. Because some of the videos that Joseph created for True Earth, we've taken to 100 million views plus, right? So he lays out the whole formula. It's super fun. He's got a great British accent, so you'll love that as well. So that was probably my favorite. But man, I've had a lot of really good guests, and I assume you're this way too. Almost every podcast host that I talk to is this way. One of the main reasons I keep doing it, I keep hosting a podcast, is just because I get to talk to awesome people. I get to spend
conversations,
an hour with Joseph Wilkins. Why else would we talk for an hour? So getting to meet people is super fun. But I've gotten to interview Ezra Firestone, obviously, and he's a good friend, so we get to hang out some as well. But yeah, I think Joseph is probably the number one for right now for this year.
And as usual, for people listening, links will be in the show notes. Go to chronos.agency/podcast to check out more. And Brett, you have been in the scene for a long time. I'm pretty sure as time went on, your beliefs and your philosophy when it comes to work and business probably had some major shifts along the way. What was a recent eureka moment or belief shift that changed for you? I'm always interested in in that, because I think that shapes the decisions that we make. And I think I personally learn a lot from kind of observing the beliefs and philosophies of other people.
Yeah, such a good question, and I think one thing about most entrepreneurs is that, and I mentioned that I love the game, right? I love being in the game, so I do tend to think about work a lot. I think about growing the business, and I think about what's next. I think about partnerships, and I think about people that I want to meet, and so I'm thinking about this quite a bit. Now, though, that I have a good team in place and an awesome COO and really just great team top to bottom, I don't have to work the same hours that I used to work. I still work a lot, but I don't have to work crazy hours like I used to build the business. I think a
Mhm.
couple of aha moments. I actually one came from coaching, and so I mentioned this too before we hit record. Used to coach basketball, love
Yep.
basketball, and so I was coaching. I was like a volunteer, but I was helping my son's team. It was a very competitive team. It was a varsity team. Probably too much of a time commitment to be doing that and running an agency, but I did it. And one of the things that I learned was like, you can't get out on the floor and do stuff, right? You can't, as much as you may want to, you can't, right? And you can't make someone do something, right? So what you have to do is create this environment that brings out the best in people, and then you have to coach and steer and guide to
Yeah.
bring out the best in someone on the court. And when you do that, you can get so much more done than you could ever do if you tried to do it all yourself, right? So I think I mentioned we're a team of 50 plus now and growing very rapidly. So you got to have the right people in place. And now, I'm mainly working with our directors and our C level or director level positions. That's mainly who I'm influencing. Um, but really seeing like, hey, my goal now is to create an environment where people are driven to be their best and become their best. And so and actually I know for me, like I can be the best in my position if I'm not working crazy hours and if I am investing in my own health. And so
Yeah.
I'm pretty crazy. I'm almost religious about taking supplements and pretty committed to working out a set number of times a week and things like that. And so I definitely have more of a white space around the time I'm in the office because I do have 8 children, right? And I want to spend time with them,
Yeah.
and I have an amazing wife, and I want to spend time with her. And so I do think I don't like the word balance because I don't know if that's ever like achievable or even what you want to do. But I do have some white space around work where I can do things that really matter and things that I'm going to treasure forever. Because really, it's about relationships. And I think, and sorry, I feel like this is a really long winded answer, but one final thing I'll mention
Good.
is we talked about money in the beginning, and I made up a number, 20 million in the bank or whatever. I've got lofty goals from a
Yeah.
financial standpoint, and I think that's totally cool, right? But I
Hmm.
also know, and this has been a big shift for me, that what I want to optimize for though is doing something meaningful with
Hmm.
people I like and having adventures, right? Like doing things that it's fun, like working with guys like you, it's fun. Working with the people on my team is fun. And yes, we're successful, we're making money as well. But I want to optimize for relationships and adventures first. And,
Yep.
and you can make money as you're doing that.
Yeah, I love that so much because it's actually a recent realization or struggle of mine. I guess both, a little bit of both. That we are a very outcome oriented company, Chronos, naturally coming from
Sure.
the demands of our clients and us wanting to succeed. One of our core principles is obsess over client success.
Yes.
And by extension, that means obsessing over the outcome of what we do, not necessarily the process that
Mm.
comes from it. So, meaning we try to find the best route possible every way that we can, every opportunity that we get. But that doesn't always necessarily mean that we pick the best process, the best path to follow. And I question that a lot because in a from another perspective, that could mean if the outcome is results and if the outcome is like a financial number, then I'll do whatever it takes, no matter what the process, whatever the consequences that comes with that process. And that's a tough thing to think about, because then number one, we might be compromising on the other values
Yep.
that's not well articulated. Number two, we may just be compromising on the journey and enjoying the journey in the first place, which sucks because
it's very easy to create a success that you hate, right? You can create this world, and I've heard people talk about that. I think it may have been Tony Hsieh, the Zappos founder, who's no longer with us. He passed, but he was talking. I think he was talking about like a previous company where he was building it, growing, scaling, crazy growth rate. And he walked in one day and he's like, "I don't really like it here. I don't like the people I'm working with." And this was pre Zappos. I don't like what we're doing. I don't like any of this, right? So if we're not careful, we could create a level of success that we don't like. And then it's like, what's the point? Like, it doesn't matter how full your bank account is if you hate every day. Then why are you doing it? So
makes sense. I love that. Brett, it's been so much fun. For people listening who are interested to connect with you and learn more about what you do, where should they go to?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been a blast, man. Thanks for having me on. Really, really enjoyed it. And so the easiest way to connect with us is to go to omgcommerce.com. Got some free resources there. Google Shopping Guide that I talked about. You'll find links there. Top YouTube ad examples guide is there. So if you want to, I think one of the best ways to learn is to see other successful ads. So put together a free resource that has some of the boom ads and other top performing YouTube ads that you can watch and kind of learn from. And I break down why they work. And then some Amazon ad guides, a sponsor brand video, and Amazon DSP, and some other stuff that you can check out. So that's the best way to connect. I'm also on the socials. So hit me up on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn a little bit, and trying to up my Instagram game. And who knows? Like I'm experimenting with. I'm thinking about getting on TikTok. We'll see if that happens. So that's I've mapped out this calendar of what I want to do on TikTok. We'll see if I actually execute. But for sure, Facebook, hit me up on the website, LinkedIn. We can connect there.
TikTok, I cannot wait. I'm going to be following you for sure. And is that at Brett Curry?
Yes. That's a great question. So for which profile? So at Brett Curry is Twitter, which I don't do a whole lot on. The Brett Curry is my Instagram, and then Facebook is I don't know, I don't remember. So yeah, we can link to it in the show notes.
Link to it, no worries.
Yeah.
Awesome, Brett. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Josh, thank you so much. It was a blast.
Thanks for listening to the E-commerce Profits Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get notified of future episodes.